3-8.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to the presentation tonight. I'm really excited to talk about the North Channel. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just carry on. So I've taken 3 trips up there, and this is the picture from last December. This is my boyfriend, Gord. I went up with him.
Yeah.
And I guess people talk about, you know, how did COVID change the whole voyage planning and things like that. You know, well, for us, it was like an escape from COVID. It was terrific. And yes, there were a few roadblocks, and I'll discuss them. But if you want to get up to the North Channel, as Willie was saying, this would be a really perfect year to get up there. And that's me. And again, that's just leaving Gore Bay, which is where the charters at Canadian Yacht Charters sail out of. And I'm pretty happy to get out of Toronto and all of the pandemic. Okay, so just a few words on why do people return year after year? Basically, the North Channel is incredibly scenic. It's unspoiled, and there are no cottages. So as you can see in this picture, it's just unspoiled shoreline everywhere. And it's just beautiful to be up there. The wind is fantastic. It's out of the west, and it's a steady 15-knot wind. So that's pretty nice for us sailors. And then throughout the presentation, I'll just try and tempt you with beautiful pictures and talk a little bit about various topics. So some of the topics I want to cover are good navigation, how to get there, how to get back, and I've got a few options for that. And what happens if you charter a boat rather than taking your own boat up, and then a few other miscellaneous topics after that. And we're looking at a painting that was done by Franklin Carmichael in 1939. It's called In the Cloche Hills. This was a favorite inspiration for the group of 7. They were up there a lot. A lot of the group of 7 liked to paint up there. And you can see that big sky in the painting. And I'm sure, you know, that's pretty familiar to everybody. And that is what you'll see up there. It's known for the big skies up in the North Channel. And the Cloche Mountains are also sacred to the Indians. So it's just a really beautiful spot to go visit. Okay, so here's a map. And it's basically, you've got Killarney in the east end. I don't know if you can see that, but it's on the north shore there. Killarney is way in the east. And then if you then scan over to the west, you can see the Michigan border. So the North Channel basically goes from Killarney over to Sault Ste. Marie, which is also where the US border is. The width ranges from 20 miles of wide open water passages. So you can see where it would be 20 miles long there in the wide parts, right down to narrow island channels that are less than 50 feet wide. So a lot of variety in terms of the sailing that you can do there. And there are channels within the channels. So they have charming names like Whalesback Channel and the McBean Channel. And then Manitoulin Island is significant because it's the largest freshwater island in the world. And that's what gives the protection to the North Channel. That's why the sailing is so good up there, because of the protection from Manitoulin Island. All right, so let's get right into anchoring, because that's kind of the tricky part. And I want to give you the tools and the confidence to go up there and not be afraid of the rocks and not be afraid of the water depths, because it's very doable. The first year that I went up there, it was my first cruise, and I managed just fine. You just have to be careful. You can see here that this boat has tied off from the stern. back to the rocks, and they often have these sort of stakes with rings in them jammed into the rock. They're very, very sturdy. So you have the line coming off the stern, you pitch the anchor off the front. Probably you pitch the anchor first. Anyway, but it's a silt bottom. And so the hold is very, very secure. All the anchorages are like that. It's all silt bottom. And so you sort of look at all those rocks and you think, oh my goodness, how's the anchor ever going to hold? But it does hold very, very well. And, you know, some other common sense things for getting in the anchorages would be just good teamwork, good boat handling skills. You got to get a bow watch on. That's really important. And just always look at your depth meter and use your charts. And don't sail at night. That would not be a good thing to do. And so on that idea of keeping water under the keel and staying safe, I want to talk about some of the navigation aids that are available to us. And as I get started on that topic of navigation, I'll just get you to look at this anchorage, which is called the Covered Portage Cove. It's a very popular anchorage. It's over by Killarney. And this is another shot of Covered Portage Cove. It's kind of interesting because if you look at the top of that cliff, you can see an Indian man's head. Like, it looks like a man to me, and he looks native. So that's kind of neat that's there in Covered Portage. Okay, so this is a stretch goal to try and get into a nice tight spot like this. It's a small boat, but you know, the good thing about this is when you get into these tight spots, there's very little wind and very little wave action. So it's not as hard as it looks as long as you come in slowly. And I've just put it in here as an example of, you know, sort of a stretch goal, and that it is possible to go in these tight spots. Again, take your sails down early just so that you can, you know, not go charging into a rock face. So get your speeds down. And then what I want to show you next, aside from all the boat handling ideas, is some other navigation aids that you'll be using. And I want to talk a little bit about datum and water level fluctuations, because you need to sort of be conversant in those concepts. This is a beautiful shot of, it's called, in the background, all those rocks are called the sow and pigs. And I love to think about when you're sailing by, there's, you know, these pigs lying in the water with the sow, and it's really fun getting across this area. It leads into the Benjamin Islands, and that's the jewel of the North Channel, and everybody loves to go to the Benjamin Islands. So basically, what is it though that's going to get you around those rocks and into the proper anchorages? And so I'll show you a couple of pictures of what's in the ports books that will help you with that. But before I get to that, I want to talk a little bit about datum. So datum is set automatically in modern chart plotters, and it's based on information in the chart file. So you do not have to enter datum into your chart plotter. It's already in there. The older ones, you did have to enter datum, but you don't have to enter it anymore. It's a reference point. And I'll just read it off. It's chart datum refers to the reference depth at which all the depth settings are listed on the chart. And in Canada, you will not really see anything lower than datum. If you're out sailing, it will always be datum or higher, just because of the reference that Canada uses. Okay, in addition to datum and the fact that all the depth measurements are coming off of datum, you also need to understand that there's water depth fluctuations from year to year. And we all know this, but how would you know what that fluctuation is? So some people will just, you know, they'll tell you, people share that knowledge and they'll say, okay, well, we're 2 feet above datum this year. But there's also the continuous marine broadcast on the VHF channel 21B or 83B, and you can get navigation hazards from those two channels, and they'll talk about if there is low water, for example. They also have these things, it's quite a mouthful, but they're called voice announcing water level gauging stations, and they're scattered throughout because water level variations vary at different locations and at different times of years. So you can just phone in to say the Little Current phone number and get a continuous readout of what's going on with water levels at that area. And that way you're not sort of dependent or wondering if the person who just told you what the water fluctuation is. You can actually go to the source and really find out for yourself. Okay, so here is the Ports Guide picture of the Benjamin Islands. And what's great about this is it shows you the sow and pigs, and obviously that's a no-go zone. And then it shows you that you go all the way over to Secretary Island and follow that dotted line to get into the more protected areas. So it's a great navigation aid. It also references back in the bottom left corner, you can see what chart it's guiding you through. So that's a great navigation aid. Coupled with that aerial photo is this stylized or simplified map or chart. And this is really easy to read, and it's very handy when you're going into these anchorages. You'll be avoiding those shaded areas. You need to get to know your symbols, and the asterisk is a rock. The cross with a dot in each corner is also a rock. So, you need to know your rock symbols, your rock abbreviations. If you're ever stuck and you see something on the chart that you don't know what that abbreviation is, you go to something called Chart 1, and that's a listing of all the symbols and all the abbreviations that you would ever encounter. So it's a great reference. Okay, and you do not have to enter in the water level variations into your chart plotter. Just do the math, kind of, do mental math as you're going into these spots, and use your depth meter a lot. And this is Clapperton Island. So you got your shaded contour lines. That's another visual aid to help you stay out of harm's way. And it's pretty intuitive to use that. You can go into your chart plotter and actually fiddle with those settings. So you can have those contours at whatever reading you choose, but probably just the default setup is fine. And another thing to be worried or cognizant of is some of the charts are actually in metric. So, if I didn't even notice this, I don't think, until my second year, my first year, but most of the charts I'm taught with, it's kind of in, oh dear. But anyway, so most of the charts are in imperial, and that probably would match up with your chart plotter, which is in feet as well. But just be aware that, there could be a mismatch. And watch out for that metric label. Okay, and this is sort of really techie, but it's kind of something that I would like to try to get my navigation skills to the next level. Because really, when I was up there, I was just piloting. I'd get a reference on the shore, kind of know, what anchorage I wanted to get to, get a reference on the shore, and get the bearing and go that way. But what a lot of people are starting to do is they turn their chart plotter into a little transmitter, a Wi-Fi transmitter, just by flipping a switch in the settings. Then they get their iPad, and you can actually see what the chart plotter is showing you by joining that Wi-Fi link that the chart plotter is sending out. So basically the iPad, it just becomes a repeater. One of the big benefits is things like touchscreen and Zoom. And also, I don't know about you, but I find the navigation of the menus in a traditional chart plotter very frustrating, because I just feel like I can't get in the menu areas that I want, or I forgot where I just was. But you've got this great interface on the iPad, which should make it a lot easier. And also someone can be on the helm and using the chart plotter at the helm, whereas you could be sitting anywhere in the boat, maybe doing some route planning and seeing exactly the same thing that he's seeing on the chart plotter, because it does show you exactly what's on that chart plotter. So you just have to download an app called Ray Marine Control to your iPad and do a few little bits of setup, but it's kind of a fun thing to think about. Okay, so just some pretty pictures to tempt you to get up there. It's very peaceful there at night, and you just feel so secluded and protected. So it's, sometimes the wind is blowing in the treetops as you're sitting, it could be quite windy, but you'll just be in this beautiful, secluded, glassy area, which is beautiful. That's another gorgeous shot of the sky. Okay, and this is a fun little spot that you have to get through if you decide to head west, and it's called Little Detroit. It doesn't look too difficult when you look at it, but when you're approaching in a sailboat, you have to be on your toes. You can see that rangefinder on the port side, and it's really fun to use that rangefinder to sneak through Little Detroit. And then it looks easy here because everything's so calm and still, but you can see that if the wind picks up, there's no options there. There's only one route. So Little Detroit will make you feel really quite proud of yourself once you get through that. And another spot that was a highlight is called Mary Ann Cove. And it's just beautiful. It looks out onto the Cloche Mountains, which the mountains sparkle at night. It's really beautiful. Mary Ann Cove is at the base of Bay Fin, and Bay Fin is also one of the most popular spots. It's basically a fjord, and it's quite striking when you go up Bay Fin. But see if you can get into Mary Ann Cove. It's popular, so it can be tricky to get in there because of other boaters. Okay, so let's change focus a little bit. If you were taking your own boat up, you'd be going up the Trent Severn waterway. So I want to talk a little bit about the Severn. It's 386 kilometers long, stretching across central Ontario, and it starts at the Bay of Quinte and ends up at Port Severn in Georgian Bay. The specs on that is 37 conventional locks, 2 flight locks, 2 hydraulic lift locks, and a marine railway. So a little bit of everything. It's managed by it's a National Historic Site. The whole thing is a National Historic Site, and it's managed by Parks Canada. So it's very well run. They really want to encourage people to come and enjoy that. And some people will spend an entire summer just doing the Trent Severn. It would take you about 10 days. That would be, you wouldn't be rushing to do that trip. Okay, so it's just really charming. And I know growing up at my cottage on Lake Simcoe, it was always a really fun day trip to drive out to the Kirkfield hydraulic lock and see the boats going through. In terms of the cost of getting through the locks, it's a very good deal. And examples of costs for a 36-foot boat would be a whole season pass is just $324. So that's to get through the entire passage. And the mooring fees would be on top of the lock fees. A seasonal pass for the mooring fees is $371 or $33 a night for a 36-foot boat. The lock fees you can get as a 1-day pass or a 6-day pass, or whatever you need in terms of time. And it's a cumulative kind of pricing structure. So if you buy a 6-day pass and then you actually need 4 more days, then you just sort of accumulate fees. You just save your receipts. I found when I was just doing some fact checking and things for this presentation that their well, they have a Facebook page and a Twitter account, and they're incredibly responsive. So it's, it's very well run. They'll answer your questions and they have a lot of knowledge there. And these are just some of the amenities that you would encounter as you're traveling up the loch. So it's, there's boater camping, your fire pits. They have showers and all kinds of things. And you can plan out your whole trip using this grid, so you can plan when you'll get what amenity. And at the end, I'll get into a little bit of how are these amenities affected by COVID, because there was some impact there. There is no reservations on the Trent Severn, but from what I've read, there isn't a problem getting in. But I wonder what it will be like this summer, because so many people will be in Ontario looking for that Ontario adventure. So who knows how busy it will be, but apparently you can always get a spot. Okay, so more about water levels, because it is something that you have to deal with on the Trent Severn. I'll just read a note from them. It says, the operator of any vessel drawing 5 feet or more who is considering navigating the waterway should call the following number. And it's, a 705 number, and you can get that off the Facebook page. So yeah, they want to talk to you. It is okay for 5 foot, but they want to discuss it with you, I guess. And the reason I like this this chart is you can see it's a managed water level. So from May the 24th all the way over to October the 14th, they're always going to be at that orange line and make sure that it's all good for the boaters. All right, so what happens with the unstepping for the Trent Severn? You'd have to go all the way over to Collins Bay Marina, which is east of Trenton. The two unstepping areas at Trenton, which would normally be Trenton CFB Marina or the Trenton Town Dock, they are not unstepping right at the moment. So Collins Bay Marina does have a whole COVID-friendly approach to unstepping. And what they request is that you give them as much advance notice as possible, because they need to quarantine the boat if they're doing work on the boat. So you need to give them some advance notice, and it's not hugely expensive. I seem to have missed a decimal, so I'm not going to quote what I wrote down here, but it's not a really unreasonable cost to get unstepped there. There is that whole thing where you'd have to motor from Collins Bay over to Trenton, and that's a whole day. But there you go. Okay, so if you get up to Port Severn, there's a marina there called Queen's Cove Marina, where for smaller boats less than 30 feet, you can step your mast again. Otherwise, you might want to go over to the Y Heritage Marina. Okay, so here we are. We've arrived in Port Severn, which would be in the bottom right-hand corner. And the target is the North Channel. So you can see the North Channel, you can see Killarney in the upper left, you can see Little Current in the upper left. Well, how would you get there? There's two choices. If you go up the east side, that's the 30,000 Islands. And the other choice would be to go up the west side. And I'll just read out the route, because I did find this on one of the forums. So the route up the west side would be Port Severn, then Midland. Then you go west of Beausoleil Island, continue curving left, keeping Christian Island on your starboard side, then Tobermory. So that's at the top of the Bruce Peninsula. I'm sure you all know that. Then you cross the water, and the target on the other side of the water is called Club Island. And then it says keep east coast of Manitoulin Island on your port side. Then you get to Killarney, and Killarney is the start. So you have two choices for getting up, either the east side or the west side. This is from the Ports Guide, And that little red line all through it is called the small craft route. So they give you a route to get through all those islands, and it's supposed to be just beautiful going through the 30,000 islands. So it's all mapped out, and there it is for you. Okay, so here you are. Now you've made it to the North Channel. It's kind of a nice picture. This is a picture Gore took, and this guy visited us when we were in an Anchorage one afternoon. It's pretty majestic and awe-inspiring. And more scenery, very typical of the North Channel. Okay, so as I'm passing through a couple more slides, I just want to talk a little bit about what you need to prepare. Probably a lot of you already know these things, but I'll just make a list in case it sparks other ideas or you hadn't thought of them. What we took was a handheld backup VHF. Same thing for a GPS. It was a backup handheld GPS in case we ran into problems. Batteries, flares, binoculars, rigging knife. You need your PCOC card, proof of insurance, and maybe a passport or a Nexus card, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. I know the border's closed now, but what happens, 2022, I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, and you need a 10-foot dinghy to drag behind the sailboat with an outboard motor attached. The outboard motor is going to be on the sailboat railings, so you need a spare gas can for that, and you need a pretty good line for trailing that dinghy behind you. And the ties are always on the port and starboard side. You don't sort of do the painter thing. You latch it onto the port and starboard side of the dinghy. A couple other things to think about is just to keep people informed of where you're traveling. The cell phone's great, keeps you connected, and I've never had any problem with the cell phone coverage up there. Maybe take along some manuals for your boat in case you run into problems. And this is a really charming lighthouse. It's near Strawberry Island. It's really nice to sail past that. Because it's all just so wild and rugged, and then you just see these signs of, these markers. It's really, really a great feeling when you go by that. And I guess, for sort of changing the topic a little bit, what's the history up there? And, so I included this slide because it's the voyageurs going to find some fur pelts, and they traveled this route, which is pretty amazing. Here's the map that their journey is incredible. They start in Montreal, Ottawa River, French River, and then look at where they go. They go right north of Manitoulin Island, along Lake Superior, and all the way up to Fort Chipewyan. So kind of interesting that they were up there doing that. And now for a totally different time scale of history, you can't talk about the North Channel without talking about the rocks. And I'll just read this. It's from a geology report because it's kind of a lot of big words. But anyway, the earliest rocks of the Lake Huron area, which have been dated, are granites. At least 2,500 million years old. And those granites were intruded into a pre-existing assemblage of volcanic and sedimentary rock. So what you see in that picture is sort of a rock structure, and then somehow all this granite at different eras in the history of the Earth, they got pushed into pre-existing rock. And geologists just love this because, I'll read it again, it says, the Precambrian era encompasses more than 3/4 of the entire history of the Earth, but relatively little is known about it. So with these kinds of intrusions, geologists can understand the sequence of events, but exact timing is more difficult. That's changed a little bit now because of radioisotopes, and they can really narrow down what was happening when. But the geologists love this kind of arrangement up here. The other thing too is that when they go and they test the soils from all these 2,500 million years ago, they find that those soils were tested at a time when the Earth's atmosphere had no oxygen. So that's what, you know, it's the Precambrian shale, it's ancient history. It's hard to conceive of those time scales, but that is sort of the charm of, oh my, there it is, okay. That's sort of the charm of the North Channel, is it gets your imagination going because these rocks are so old. And even the Milky Way, when you look at the Milky Way at night, the stars are incredible. So it's another part of the North Channel that waits for you up there. The reason for this map is to show you that the Canadian Shield, that pink and blue area, this is the southern limit of the Canadian Shield. And then when you look at Manitoulin Island, it's yellow. So that's a different era. That's the Mesozoic era. So when you're going along the North Channel, you're actually passing through a transition zone, which is quite significant. And it's just nice to sort of to know what was going on there geologically. Okay, so let's barrel forward and get back to sort of the North Channel and sailing, and you're in your boat. So you've reached the west end of the North Channel. You've been sailing around, say, maybe if you're lucky, you could be up there for a 2-week period. Now, how do you get home? And what a lot of people do is they do a loop, and they'll come down Lake Huron, down the Detroit River, Lake St. Clair River, Lake Erie, Welland Canal, and back home to Lake Ontario. So after seeing all this ancient rocks and nature and rugged, unspoiled beauty, you know, this is what might await you down south. So apparently it's a great trip to do. And I asked a Commodore from this club, it's called the Thames River Yacht Club. It was quite funny because I emailed him and I was saying, oh, you know, I'm doing this presentation for the North Channel. He said, oh, really? I'm going up there this summer. So there's someone who's going. Anyway, he said that the clubs are open to visitors who socially distance and wear masks. And yes, navigation on the Canadian side of the border is possible. So you could do this loop this summer. I mean, obviously you couldn't cross over the border. That wouldn't be a good idea. That might be for another year. And why would you do the loop? So a couple of reasons. Basically, there's a current in the Detroit River, and the speed of that current is 2.5 knots normally, but it can range up to 6 knots. So you don't want to be fighting that current. And if you go in a counterclockwise direction in your loop, then you're going to be okay. I did read that water levels can be lower on Canal Lake in the Trent Severn system. So I don't know, you know, sometimes I don't like to just take Facebook comments at face value. So I don't really know, it kind of sounds logical, but there's lots of water if you go on the loop route. And I guess a loop is a bit more interesting than just sort of there and back. In a different year, maybe when we've got the border open again, imagine you could go to Cleveland on Lake Erie. I don't know if anyone sailed down there, and it's a great city. They have great restaurants. They have a great symphony orchestra. There's a little town called Oberlin, which is quite close to Cleveland, and it's a really charming, it's a charming town with a really small liberal arts college. So you can do a little bit of sightseeing and things like that. Someone's mic needs to be muted. Anyways, okay, so that's, yeah, there's a great yacht club in Cleveland. It's called the Edgewater Yacht Club. They have really phenomenal regattas there. So there's a lot of history of sailing in Cleveland as well. Okay, so we sort of covered if you took your own boat, and how would you get there? How would you get back? But what if you kind of want to have your hands held a little bit for your first time up there and you decide to charter? Well, you would charter with Canadian Yacht Charters. It's a very good company. And I'll just move back up to the North Channel, just, to give a nice picture again. Canadian Yacht Charters is a very good charter company. Their boats are very clean. They're very organized. They've been at it a long time. They get favorable reviews. So it's a really good option. I guess one of the drawbacks is you are limited sort of from Saturday to Saturday. I guess you could book a 2-week charter, but it sometimes feels a bit rushed when you're just up there for the week. But if you were chartering, well, how would you get up there? How would you get back? There's 2 options. You could drive from Toronto. You could leave Toronto early in the morning, and you could drive up the Bruce Peninsula to Tobermory, catching the 1:30 p.m. ferry over to the island. And that's a really fun adventure. The ferry is called the Chichimon, and it's just a really fun voyage. The ferry transit is 2 hours. So your total trip time from Toronto up to Gore Bay using the Chichimon is 7.25 hours, which is a pretty long journey, but it's doable. The other option would be to drive all the way from Toronto over to Gore Bay, and you would pass through Sudbury. That drive takes 6 hours, so you can shave a little bit of time off your journey. All right, so what does it cost at Canadian Yacht Charters? And I've just got a couple of sample boat fees for you to think about. Their Jeanneau 34.9 is $4,100 for the week. Their sail catamaran is $4,700, and their Grand Banks trawler sleeps 2 to 4 people. That's $4,000 a week. So if you share it with a couple, it's pretty okay for a week-long fee, I guess. Okay, so a little bit more pictures. This is Killarney. So again, this is the east end of the North Channel. And just a few more words about chartering with Canadian Yacht Charters. If, whoever puts the charter booking on their credit card, they are the person that would be dealing with the insurance company if there was ever a problem with the boat. So you might want to have maybe the most conservative, safe sailor on the boat booking the charter, because they're, ultimately they're kind of, deciding how safe and how careful you want to be in a way. You can get extra insurance from Canadian Yacht Charters if you want. So there's a lot of insurance options. And again, it just gives you that comfort feeling if it's your first time up and you're a little bit worried about rocks and running into trouble. Also, they give you the option of sleeping aboard the night before. And I would absolutely recommend doing the sleep aboard, because it's a lot of provisioning and packing and unpacking and things like that. So a little bit more about timing. When do you want to go and make this trip? What part of the summer? And a really important consideration is maybe going for late August, because that's when the bugs are gone. And that's when the anchorages are quite empty. It can get quite crowded up there, and I've always gone late August. So just a thought in terms of the timing. If you go up earlier, you're going to need, enclosures to keep the bugs out, because it can get pretty buggy. In terms of provisioning, Gore Bay is fine for provisioning. It's got a really good grocery store. If I'm chartering, I would prefer to get everything in Toronto and then just top up in Gore Bay. And, there isn't a place really to stop and get a hamburger in the North Channel. So you really need to do a lot of menu planning and then generate a shopping list from that. And I would recommend getting a cookbook that just solely deals with, cooking on a boat, because you get a lot of inspiration and it's practical. So what if you charter and you want to visit Manitoulin Island after? And this is what you might see. Pretty beautiful. And it's nice. It sort of connects you back to your roots, maybe down in, if you have a place in Collingwood or you hike on the Bruce Trail closer to home. It's really nice to see this escarpment. And this trail is called it's got a great name. It's called the Cup and Saucer Trail. There's a lot of tourism in Manitoulin Island, and a couple of highlights would be the Schoolhouse Restaurant, and Providence Bay is absolutely stunning. It's just so beautiful. Okay, so a little bit more about resources, what's going to help you make a safe trip and be prepared. A couple of things I've come across are the Safe Boating Guide, which is a government publication. The Canadian Yacht Charter's website is excellent. They have really thorough lists of what to pack, and it just gets your mind in the right frame for planning a sailing trip. So you should glean that website. Of course, the ports cruising guides are important. You need the Trent Severn and the Lake Simcoe port guide. You need the Georgian Bay, North Channel, and Lake Huron port guide. And you also need the paper charts for the North Channel. I've heard that you can get away without buying the paper charts for the Trent Severn, that you can just use your chart plotter. It's a well-marked channel. So, sort of like you just go follow the channel. The cruisersforum.com is an excellent source. There's a post in there called Trent Severn Lessons Learned. So have a look through that. And when I was researching this, I found this new product for mapping. It's kind of sounds like a really interesting thing. It's called Nautical Chart Books, and it's spiral bound, 12 inches by 18 inches. So a nice size, very manageable. The scale's 1 to 20,000, which is a really good scale. And it's laminated. Each page is laminated. So it lies flat, it's laminated, waterproof. I was kind of intrigued by this. The company is called Track Maps. So a good option there for getting charts. Okay, so we're getting towards the end. So just put up a sunset picture. Couple of tips if you're thinking about how does COVID affect things. Everything you just have to sort of double check your bookings. You have to stay on top of things in case dates change. Other things, it's a little bit headachy. That Chi-Chi-Mon is at half capacity, so that's to accommodate social distancing. So you just have to be careful about when you purchase your tickets, because they can only put half the capacity on that boat. There was a delay last summer with the Trent Waterway. It was delayed a week. That's not that bad, but it took them a while to get open and running. So things like shower facilities, camping by car, on the Trent Severn, that might be shut down in certain places. Up at the Gore Bay Marina, the charter company showers were closed, the municipal showers were open, things like that. You came across that, just, you had certain things were shut down, but they were still operating. I looked into, was there a cancellation policy on my credit card or at Canadian Yacht Charters, and I didn't find any cancellation policies that were available to me, like COVID cancellation policies. So I don't know what products people are offering now for COVID cancellation policies, but it would be a good question to ask. My whole view was just to stay safe, don't get sick, make sure like you keep yourself healthy so that you can actually get up there. On their end, they had to coordinate very carefully with the government in terms of cleaning the boats, but also quarantining the boats in between each charter. And they were following those regulations very carefully. So that was very comforting. And so I hope I've, got some inspiration for you. It's the end of the talk, and if there's anything you want to dive into deeper, then I guess it would be a time for the question and answers. And here's some of the sources, just to give credit to people or organizations who, you know, assisted me in putting this together. I do have a couple of questions. Okay, I wasn't monitoring this. Kathy McDonald asked, what types of anchors are best in the North Channel? Good question. Ay, ay, ay. Anybody? It's a silt bottom.
Yeah, simply put, a mantis.
Yeah, it's the, yeah, okay. Is that, okay, that's what it's called, eh? Okay. Next one is, can you get your boat to this area from Lake Ontario without crossing the border? If not using the Trent to get there, as deep draft boats can't use it. Okay, so yes, you could, if your boat is too deep draft for going up the Trent Severn, you can go up Lake Erie, Lake Huron. You can go up that way, but you're going to be fighting the current. That's the only proviso there. And you can you get your boat to this area from Lake Ontario? Apparently you can get up there without crossing the border. I did ask that to the Commodore. Does anybody have any experience with doing that route, like Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, Lake Huron? Has anybody done that? And does anybody have experience with that border issue and navigating?
Yeah, hi Heather, Willie Powell here. I did that transit this year going down, and I stuck to the American side because I had to quarantine once I came to Canada. But you can absolutely go up or down. It's an international waterway, and the Canadian Border Services basically want to know if you've anchored or docked in the US. So you can cross the line, but you're probably best just to hug the Canadian shore, which you can do all the way.
Yeah, that's confirming what I heard from this Commodore, that it's possible to stay on the Canadian side. So that was great. And then all those clubs are open, you know, as long as you socially distance. That was the best news I had heard in weeks when I heard back from him. I have a question here, the PCOC card. Personal, help me out here. It's what's that? Personal pleasure craft operator card. So you have to do a little exam and then you get your pleasure craft operator card, and it's sort of like a license. They make you do some safety training and things like that. So you need that when you take a boat out. Okay, yes, Lake Huron to Ontario, down the river, Erie, and then the Welland Canal. Yep, people seem to be liking that. It says, note, you cannot buy fuel on the Canadian side from Sarnia to Lake Erie. I also read in a blog post that there wasn't a lot of services along the north side of Lake Erie, but we're stuck with that this year because of COVID. Okay, here's another one. John and I sailed the North Channel for 3 seasons, 2000 to 2003. We sailed Exceller up there in August through the Welland Canal route. We will be spending part of next summer in the North Channel. Okay, so that's great. So you did do the clockwise. You did go the other way. Okay, good to know. Oh yeah, Heather Cartwright. Okay, how much actual sailing did you do versus motoring? I don't know if that's the question generally for the North Channel or if you're doing one of these big loops. I can speak about what happens when you're chartering in the North Channel, and really depends on the wind, you know. You can get some pretty calm days. And so if you want to go meet some friends in some anchorage somewhere, you're stuck with motoring for sure. It depends, but in general, it's a steady 15 knot wind So it's very good wind. But it's, you know, it's
15 knots. That's absolutely bullshit.
okay. So can someone comment on that?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So there's some feedback on it's not 15 knots. Maybe we can talk about that some more. I mean, anyways. Okay. Here you go. The Great Lakes Cruising Club is the best source and it beats the Ports Guide. So that's a website. And yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It says the Great Lakes Cruising Club gives access to many more anchorages. So there's a benefit. Ports is primarily for marinas. Another endorsement, Great Lakes Cruising Guides take you off the beaten track. And can we have a sources page sent out to participants? Sure. Yeah, okay. Linda Carter says, truck the boat to Georgian Bay. We have done that 3 times. I tried to tackle that and researched a little bit. I think that's a great idea. I wish we could, I don't know if you can somehow share that with everybody, how you got, you know, who did you use and this kind of thing. Okay, so Barb says, we did it going northbound. We didn't have to go through the customs or through the border. All right. Oh, here's one. For a 1-week chartered cruise, which are the top 3 to 4 anchorages in the North Channel that you would recommend? Well, I would just make sure like the Benjamin Islands, Turnbull Island, and Marianne Cove. Those would be my top 3. Here's another question about trucking. How much does it cost to truck from OHM to Midland?
Outer Harbor Marina.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So from Outer Harbor Marina to Midland. So if we can get some answers in the chat about trucking costs, I think people would be really interested in that because it takes out that really onerous sail to get up to the North Channel. Linda Carter said that the restaurant and Spanish had the best fish and chips ever. And oh, we have a competition now. Herbury's Fish and Chips in Killarney is our favorite place. Benjamin Islands is one of our favorite spots. Yes, absolutely. You have to get to the Benjamins. Okay, it says, oh yeah, thank you, Willie. So Willie's saying that we trucked Crazy 8 to Collingwood 3 times. You just need bridge clearances. Oh, good question. How long is the season for boat rentals? I just direct you to the Canadian Yacht Charters website. It's spelled out really clearly there, but it's a good season. I mean, it's a pretty good long season, so that's good. And let's see. Oh, it looks like someone's interested in going up there because they said, thank you for a very interesting presentation and it's something to look forward to. Yeah, more questions about trucking the boat. So the more we can get on here about costs and how you got the boat shipped by truck. We use Van Tuyl Trucking. They're really nice when you talk to them on the phone. Andrews Trucking. Okay. Trucking from Outer Harbor Marina, $1,400. So there's a price. Okay. Says from Ken Mitchell, Pam at CYC is looking forward to your bookings. Please provision in Gore Bay and support the local economy. That's a great comment. Yeah, I think they've had a tough time of it up there in Manitoulin. Really, you could tell when we were there last summer that it had been hard on them. So what's the timing? It's 8:26. I guess we should wind it down. Everybody's winding down here. Okay, you're released. You can go.
Not without a very big thank you to you, Heather. That was fantastic. And thank you so much. And I think you've all inspired us to go to the North Channel next summer. Maybe we'll have to have a rendezvous there. And also big thank you to Willie for doing all the tech, setting up the Zoom and everything. And we've got 2 more sessions, California Dreaming coming up in February and another one on going south in March. So stay tuned for more amazing Zoom sessions. And I think Heather, you and Willie have both set a very high standard for our next Zoom sessions. So it was just amazing. So thank you. And I guess if anyone is not a member of the cruising section, please sign up. We've got some great cruises planned for this summer. Fingers crossed everything goes ahead, and just go on the website for the cruising section to get the application form to join. So thanks again for an amazing night. I think all we were missing was the fish and chips, which we needed, I think, delivered door to door or something. But thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Was great. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Great
Thank you,
presentation. Thank you
everybody.
very much, Heather.
Bravo, thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Willie. Thank you, Peggy.
No idea where my video is.
This is Armand.
File. Try that.
And
You're live there.
Oh, did I finally show up live?
Yeah.
There.
Oh, no.
Oh, there's the
There's Peggy.
oh, I just hate this.
Hi, guys.
So do you want to
There
give you
it
a copy
is,
to check or
file.
something?
Back up. You want to be? How many are left?
How are you, Peggy?
Good. How are you, Colin? Where's your backdrop? Here.
Hold on.
Middle?
Hold on. Which I'm going to share you some backdrops, okay?
Okay.
I was all prepared. So there's number 1 backdrop, and we are right. Oops, can you see my finger?
Sort
That
of.
is Marianne's Cove.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we spent the past couple of years up in the North Channel, and Marianne's Cove is obviously, as Heather said, one of the great places, and it's got some epic hiking, just fantastic. And she's right; it's a very unique fjord. Want to see my last background for you, just so you.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, you got to see our boat. How do we find? See, this thing misbehaves. Hold on, here we are. Wait, ready?
Operator error.
There. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. The rubber duck.
Okay, that's our graduation program from Sail
That's
to Paddle.
Colin. And Peggy and Marianne Cove.
Amazing.
That's not Marianne Cove. This is Chimney Bay.
That
Just
looks
about
so-
45 minutes from
What you
Midland.
trying to do? Give a better talk to the other woman?
That looks very nice and serene.
Cranky old man.
We miss you guys.
And you have more photos to show?
No. I was just no, I don't. No, those are my backdrops, not photos.
We're lovely.
Wow, very impressive. Wow,
How are you guys?
good. We're surviving. I don't know. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Photos or stories or jokes or I don't know.
I'm not that
So
excited.
A lot of memories. Okay.
Well, maybe June and Jack, do you want to share some memories with us?
Put it off.
We did it in 1996.
And
Up the Trent in the North Channel and back down through the lakes.
how
3
long?
months. 3 months.
3 months. Wow.
All by yourself.
what boat did you guys have?
People say you're still married. It was quite a trip.
And the bugs were bad?
Well, we were ready for them. Yeah, you got to be all screened in up there early in the season. Yep. It's a great ride down the Detroit River and through Lake Erie. We were very lucky.
So hey, June, Colin here. What boat did you have when you did the Trent Severn in the North Channel?
We had the CS-33.
So you drew like 6 feet, right?
We shipped,
No, 5.
we
Yeah,
shipped
okay.
the mast.
We shipped the mast up to Y Heritage though.
Yeah, smart.
Mast on the deck with 2 people is a bit tricky.
Yeah.
We've done that in the canals down in the States, which you need 4 people, really.
I smiled. I smiled at the people asking about coming on the American side on Lake Erie.
I know they sound like Americans. They don't know that there's a border.
We
And they're
crossed.
all on the Canadian side.
We crossed from Canada into
Dunkirk, New York.
into the big resort town on the south side, and I tried to call into customs.
Oh, to put in Bay.
Put in Bay, and
Put in Bay.
I tried to call customs, U.S. Customs, to report in, and I asked about 4 or 5 different people, and they finally said to me, "Look, mister, don't spoil the fun for everybody. Shut up and go away." So we never did report in. And when we finally did get a place to report in on the next port, we said, "Well, where do we have to report in from here?" "Oh, Cleveland." So it was about 150 miles or whatever away. So we reported into Cleveland. We came back across to Canada and we anchored in the mouth of the Grand River, and then went to Port Colborne the next day. And we got hell from the Canadian Customs because we had not reported in when we were in the mouth of the Grand River. In those days, you could find a way of reporting in the Grand River. You're pretty lucky. There's nothing there.
But that was 1996. Things have changed since then.
So
Yeah.
going into the States was no problem. Coming back to Canada was a problem.
You're doing the Trent this summer, Colin.
We are going to spend 2 weeks going down and then 2 weeks coming back.
Good.
Oh, that'd be
I
great.
saw Wendy's birthday presents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All boat related.
Shocking.
Yeah. 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 That's good. When are you leaving?
July 1st-ish kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Get back to Georgian Bay to enjoy it in August, which is probably a good time to be back up there.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway,
Has
how about
Wendy
you guys?
reti-
What's your cruising plans?
Has Wendy retired?
No.
She's my only income right now.
Okay.
I'm becoming a radio announcer with virtual teacher.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What a amazing whole scenario. Jeez. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hello there.
So Colin and Wendy, tell us what you're going to do. Maybe you'll inspire us to follow or something.
Well, I mean, it was fun to listen to Heather. We've been up in the North Channel for, I guess, 2.5 years. Last year, we did a direct run from Midland straight up to Killarney in about 12 hours. And then we spent the rest of our 2 weeks up in Georgian Bay. But we've been putting off kind of going east through the first lock, I think, guess lock number 45 or 46 at Trent Severn. So we're going to go in there and like they have the mechanics of those locks and the marine railways and the hydraulic lifts is epic. Like there's very few places in the world we can do it. And we bought this boat to do that, small canals. So this year we can't take enough time off to go beyond the Trent and back to Kingston and up the Rideau and Ottawa. So we're just going to go down the Trent one way, visit towns, and then come back up and
Visit other towns.
visit the other towns we didn't visit on the way down. And we think we need about 10 days each way, give or take some fun. So hopefully a month off. Yeah, we'll see.
Wow.
Anyway, hopefully we meet a bunch of you guys
Yeah.
Going the other way.
going up and down.
Right. Oh, wow.
But it you know, the hardship in all of this is that in order to get from RCYC to Trenton to get up to Midland, to get up to Killarney is somewhat weather dependent to get to Trenton. But once you get into Trenton and you go up the Trent Severn, I mean, it's pretty epic. There's some great, southwestern Ontario towns that you really want to spend a night in.
We've heard the butter tarts are amazing.
Right.
And then when you
Butter
get to
tarts and
Midland,
history.
oh yeah, absolutely. Then when you get to Midland, like you're into the greatest cruising grounds ever, going up the east shore of Georgian Bay. And we've spent 2 summers now just exploring all of those inlets and Mad River and
What, the
Spanish.
20,000 islands, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's like we've not even touched the surface.
Massasauga Park.
Oh,
Yeah.
so there's so much to see that it's multiple seasons up there.
Batteries.
Wow. Did you want to put on a Zoom session for us?
I somehow knew you were going to say that,
Yeah.
didn't I? Yeah, when
Sounds
you're-
like Wendy would all be prepared for the online learning parts.
Yeah, she's a pro.
Oh, God, it's like pulling teeth. Oh,
Yeah, sure. Next year, for sure, when we're slightly more there. And then the following year, we're doing the Great Loop,
Wow.
which is
Well, your
which is
parents
not
did-
the loop that
Didn't your parents
Did
do
they
the
have
Great
it?
Loop?
they did before the Great Loop was even a Great Loop.
Well,
yeah,
they
they did
the
it in,
track. Yeah,
they did it in 2000.
yeah, we know some
believe.
people who did it even before that. Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Anyway, it's all about getting off the dock. We seem to be tied down with so many freaking ropes and anchors.
So you're gonna come back from the Great Loop, or you're gonna stay down there?
That's a $1 million question.
Well, right now, we can't even get down there, nor would we ever want to be down there.
No, we gotta get the border open.
Yeah.
Gotta get the
And a few other-
vaccine.
And a few other things under control down there.
Quite a few.
Hey,
Okay,
guy.
So
How's the squash serve going there?
Guy.
Guy's retired for about 6 years.
Oh, seriously, you have the best squash serve ever in the history of squash.
Arthritis in the hands.
Yeah, it's an excuse at best. Not even a good
I
excuse.
agree. It's an excuse not to do things like house chores.
That too, yeah.
yeah.
Multi-purpose excuse.
So, Guy, you're a cat owner, right? You own a Nonsuch, right?
Right.
And how are you enjoying that?
Love it. It's only one sale to worry about.